The Brookhaven Vista condominiums stood like two sleek towers amidst a suburban sea of single-family homes. Modern lines, a mix of glass and brushed steel, and well-manicured grounds gave the impression of understated luxury. Residents boasted about amenities like a rooftop pool, a private gym, underground parking, and a series of swift elevators zipping between floors. Visitors often remarked on how calm and pleasant the common areas were, a testament to how well the Homeowners Association, HOA, enforced its rules. Among the HOA board members, the name Donna Hensley rarely elicited any strong reaction. Donna was the soft-spoken board secretary who arranged monthly meetings and posted guidelines on the building's bulletin boards. Carlton Walker, the treasurer, handled finances methodically and seemed congenial enough, if a bit aloof. Miguel Ortega, the vice president, was known for cracking jokes at board gatherings, helping neighbors feel at ease. But the real power, or at least the self-perceived power, belonged to Lauren Burnett, a middle-aged woman with a sharp gaze and an even sharper tongue. For reasons unknown, she was widely called Karen behind her back, a moniker that stuck the way nicknames often do when they perfectly capture someone's essence. Karen was in her late 50s, yet carried herself with the confidence of someone who believed she deserved the final say in every matter. She wore her blonde-brown hair in a tidy bob, sported austere suits even on casual weekdays, and spoke in clipped sentences laden with condescension. Karen rarely cracked a smile. She was the self-appointed compliance officer of the Brookhaven Vista HOA, though that title had never been formalized by a vote. Her presence in the building's hallways was a constant. She prowled them daily, scanning for any tiny transgression, be it a stray piece of trash, a doormat a shade off color, or a resident's posted flyer that lacked HOA approval. Residents who crossed paths with Karen learned quickly to offer a bland greeting, keep their eyes down, and then hurry on. Before long, Karen set her sights on a new target, a service dog named Misty, whose presence in the building deeply offended Karen's sense of allergy-free living. As it turned out, this confrontation would escalate beyond anyone's expectations, leading the entire building to take an unprecedented step in reining in Karen's aggressive behavior. Robin Summers was a recent arrival to Brookhaven Vista. Mid-30s, wheelchair user, and adept at navigating city life. She moved into the building for its reputed accessibility features, wide hallways, reliable elevators, and ADA-compliant units. With her came Misty, a golden retriever wearing a bright blue service harness. Misty helped Robin with tasks like retrieving dropped items, pressing elevator buttons, and providing support during anxiety flare-ups. Friendly neighbors welcomed Robin, and many cooed over Misty, praising how well-trained and calm she was. The dog rarely barked, never ran loose, and seemed content by Robin's side at all times. Even those who weren't dog people found Misty respectful. She never jumped or sniffed strangers in a disruptive way. However, as soon as Karen laid eyes on Misty, her lips curled into a faint sneer. She confronted Robin the first week of her move-in, asking if the dog was truly needed. Robin explained politely that Misty was an ADA-protected service animal, a legitimate necessity for daily tasks. Karen responded with an icy glare and a terse comment about allergies. She hinted that while the dog might be allowed, there were others in the building who might object. Robin was unsettled, but hoped Karen's hostility would blow over. After all, the law and the building's pet policy, which exempted service animals from normal restrictions, were on Robin's side. She decided not to escalate the issue unless Karen took further action. Still, a knot formed in Robin's stomach whenever she spotted Karen near the elevators or in the lobby, glaring at Misty. Something about Karen's presence radiated disapproval, as though she considered Robin's wheelchair and service dog an affront to the building's image. Over time, that tension grew, and it would soon erupt in the unlikeliest of places, a shared elevator ride. For the next few weeks, Robin noticed Karen looming in the background whenever Misty and she passed through common areas. Sometimes Karen pretended to study the building's decor or fiddle with her phone. Other times, she openly stared, lips pursed, as if searching for a reason to scold the pair. Occasionally, she'd huff and walk away if Robin made eye contact. Neighbors began to pick up on this dynamic. Anita Chong, who lived a few doors down from Robin, once whispered, "Watch out for Karen. She's known for filing petty complaints. She's harassed parents about noisy children. She calls security if she sees a smudge on the wall. And apparently, she hates animals. Robin tried not to let paranoia consume her. She had every legal right to keep Misty. The building management and HOA had already acknowledged her paperwork for a service dog. But each day, the tension mounted, especially in the small, enclosed space of the building's elevators. Brookhaven Vista featured 4 high-speed elevators. Usually, they were spacious enough for multiple residents and the occasional pet to ride comfortably. But if Robin and Misty were in an elevator and Karen stepped in, the atmosphere chilled. She would stand as far away as possible, scowling at the dog. Sometimes she covered her nose, muttering about allergies. Misty, trained to remain neutral, simply stared ahead or sat calmly by Robin's side. Carlton Walker, the HOA treasurer, once witnessed Karen sneering at Misty in the hallway. He pulled Robin aside afterward, quietly offering, "If she gives you trouble, come to the next board meeting. We're not all like her." He apologized on the HOA's behalf for Karen's behavior, though he admitted he had little power to rein her in directly. However, no one expected the confrontation to turn physical. Brookhaven Vista's environment, while occasionally marred by Karen's petty tyranny, had never come to real violence. But that was about to change on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Late afternoon sunlight bathed the building's glassy exterior, reflecting a soft glow into the lobby. Robin, returning from a medical checkup, maneuvered her wheelchair toward an open elevator. Misty trotted obediently beside her. Inside the elevator, she pressed the button for the 12th floor. As the door slid shut, a hand shot between them, Karen's hand. Karen stepped in, giving Robin a withering glance before jabbing the button for floor 10. The elevator began its ascent with a smooth hum. Misty sat quietly, tail wagging once or twice. The tension was thick enough to taste. At the 7th floor, the elevator gave a slight shudder and slowed. Someone outside pressed the call button, but then changed their mind, because the doors never opened. It resumed moving. Karen, shifting on her feet, muttered under her breath, "I shouldn't have to endure this dog's presence in my building." Robin exhaled a slow breath. She'd grown used to Karen's remarks, but decided to politely respond. "Misty's a service dog, ma'am. We have every right to be here." Karen's face hardened. "You're right, is giving me an allergic reaction," she snapped. "You're stinking up the elevator with dog hair. People around here value cleanliness." Misty offered a soft whimper, possibly sensing the tension. She stood, adjusting her stance next to Robin's wheelchair. That small movement seemed to ignite Karen's simmering fury. She bent forward, foot sliding back as if preparing to lash out. Before Robin could register what was happening, Karen kicked Misty on the side of her flank. It wasn't a gentle tap, it was a sharp blow, sending the dog yelping in surprise and pain. Robin let out a horrified gasp, trying to maneuver her wheelchair to protect Misty. But the confined elevator left little room to maneuver. With wide, terrified eyes, Misty scrambled to steady herself. Robin's heart slammed in her chest. She tried to reach for the emergency stop or any sort of alarm, but Karen blocked her. For one dreadful second, Karen's foot threatened another strike. Then the elevator dinged, announcing floor 10. The doors whooshed open. Karen glared down at Misty, who cowered slightly. "Keep that mutt away from me," she snarled, stepping out into the corridor. As the doors slid shut, Robin saw her vanish, leaving behind a sense of utter violation. The elevator resumed its motion. Misty nuzzled against Robin's side, trembling. Robin stroked the dog's fur, tears stinging her own eyes. She didn't know if Misty was seriously hurt. She felt an immediate wave of panic and rage. Karen had actually kicked a service dog, an unthinkable act. By the time Robin reached her 12th floor unit, her hands were shaking so badly she had trouble unlocking the door. Once inside her condo, Robin examined Misty carefully. The dog's flank was tender, and she whimpered when Robin applied light pressure. It didn't seem to be a life-threatening injury, but it was enough to warrant a vet check. Furious and upset, Robin called her friend Elena, a fellow dog owner in the building, to explain what happened. Elena's response was immediate shock. "Karen kicked your dog? That's assault. On a service animal, no less. You need to file a complaint with building security and call the police." Robin hesitated. She dreaded legal battles, but realized this might be the only way to protect Misty and other residents. I'll see how Misty's doing first. Then I'll talk to building security in the morning, she replied, still shell-shocked. That night, Misty refused to leave Robin's side. Any sudden move near her left flank caused a soft whine of pain. Robin felt guilt coil in her stomach. Had she done enough to protect her dog? She called the 24-hour vet, who recommended bringing Misty in for an exam just to be safe. Taxi service was arranged, and though the dog was bruised, the vet found no broken bones or internal injuries. Misty received pain medication and returned home late that night. Word of the incident spread quickly. Elena informed a few neighbors, who expressed outrage. Some residents had been on the receiving end of Karen's intrusive or harassing behavior, but none had heard of her physically attacking someone's property or pet. The following morning, neighbors approached Robin's door with supportive words and offers to help with any legal or HOA-related steps. Miguel Ortega, the HOA vice president, reached out with genuine concern. "I'm so sorry this happened in our building," he said, sounding stricken. "We need your account of what happened. We can't let an HOA board member get away with hurting a service dog." Robin provided a written statement detailing the elevator ride, the floors they'd passed, how Karen had cornered them, the vicious kick. But she had no evidence beyond her own word and a vet bill showing Misty's bruised flank. The elevator had no camera. Brookhaven Vista prided itself on discreet security that never intruded on resident privacy, so only the lobby and parking garage had CCTV. Her immediate worry was that Karen might deny everything and claim the dog lunged at her or triggered her allergies. Robin decided that she'd file a report with local law enforcement too, just for the record, though she suspected it might be an uphill battle without direct proof. The building's security team took her complaint seriously but admitted they had no recordings to confirm the assault. 2 days later, the HOA scheduled an emergency meeting to address the alleged incident. The board gathered in the building's small conference room, with residents invited to observe from folding chairs. Karen arrived last, sweeping in with an air of defiance, a folder under her arm. Robin sat near the front, Misty at her feet, the dog quietly resting her chin on Robin's shoe. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Miguel Ortega called the meeting to order, explaining that the only agenda item was the alleged assault on a service dog. Karen spoke first, claiming the accusations were absurd. She insisted Misty had jumped at her, aggravating her allergies. "I simply defended myself with a mild push," Karen said, voice tight. "It's not my fault if the dog is too delicate to handle a small movement of my foot. My nose was already itching, and I felt threatened by the sudden proximity of the animal." Donna Hensley, the board secretary, looked uncomfortable but read Robin's statement aloud. It described how Karen had kicked Misty, unprovoked, in a confined space. A hush fell over the room as many residents fumed. Karen scoffed. "That's a lie. She's exaggerating. That dog was practically assaulting me. And since the elevator has no camera, it's just my word against hers." Robin's hands tightened on the armrest of her wheelchair. "Misty is a trained service dog. She doesn't jump on people. My wheelchair was there. There's no space for her to have lunged at you." She glanced around, voice shaky but determined. "I have a vet's note confirming a bruise consistent with a kick. Why would I lie about something so serious?" Miguel tried to maintain calm. "Karen, you understand that service animals are protected by both federal and state law. If you truly felt threatened, you should have pressed the emergency button, not used physical force." Karen waved a dismissive hand. "I have allergies. That dog's presence in the elevator put me at risk. I can't be expected to wait for another ride every time I see it. If the building would enforce stricter service animal, rules, we wouldn't have this conflict." A chorus of murmurs filled the room. Many neighbors had come to support Robin, outraged by Karen's blatant victim blaming. Some openly shook their heads at Karen's statements. Miguel indicated they would continue investigating. "But for now, Karen, we strongly advise you to keep your distance from Miss Summers and her dog. Any further harassment could lead to more severe repercussions. We'll deliberate on possible sanctions." Karen sniffed. "We'll see about that," she said icily, gathering her folder. Then, in a pointed gesture, she rose and walked out. Donna called a brief recess. Residents flocked to Robin, muttering that Karen's story sounded paper-thin. But with no elevator camera, the board's ability to impose serious consequences might be limited. After the tense meeting, residents milled about the lobby, discussing the fiasco. Some worried about Karen possibly lashing out again. Others lamented the lack of video evidence. "If only we had a camera in that elevator," one resident muttered. "She can't keep getting away with this." One of them, Brandon Liu, perked up at the comment. Brandon was a tech-savvy architect who occasionally experimented with gadgets. He joined a small group that included Elena, Anita, and Robin. "Why can't we have cameras in the elevators?" he asked, half rhetorical. "It's 2025. Cameras are cheap, easy to install, and can run wirelessly." Elena shrugged. "I guess the building once decided it was too invasive. People value their privacy. Plus, the HOA might oppose it." Robin, stroking Misty's fur, let out a soft sigh. "I'd personally welcome cameras, but Karen might protest. She always cites privacy and building aesthetics." Brandon's eyes glinted with an idea. "But we can propose it as a measure for everyone's safety. A service dog was attacked. What if next time a child is harmed, or an elderly resident is harassed? Plus, if we do cameras in a discreet, respectful way, with the feed only accessible by building security, we might push it through." Anita nodded. "Yes, let's bring it up at the next meeting. We can show cost estimates and highlight how it could protect residents from theft, vandalism, or assault. With or without Karen's blessing, if enough of us support it, the HOA can pass a measure." Robin hesitated. She disliked the notion of living under constant surveillance. But the memory of Misty's yelp steeled her resolve. "If it prevents another assault, I'm in." So the group parted ways with a plan forming. Brandon volunteered to research small, wireless cameras that were easy to install inside elevator cabs without tearing up walls or ceilings. Elena said she'd poll neighbors for support. They hoped that if enough residents demanded better security, the HOA board, minus Karen's dissent, would approve it. After all, the building had cameras in the lobby. Why not the elevators, especially after a rumored assault? Karen, for her part, had no idea these discussions were unfolding. She likely assumed her denials would suffice and that the incident would fade. But Brookhaven Vista was on the cusp of a collective stand for accountability. In the following days, momentum built. Elena and Anita crafted a short petition. "We, the undersigned residents of Brookhaven Vista, request the installation of discrete security cameras in all elevators for the safety and well-being of our community." They circulated it door to door, explaining how an assault on a service dog had highlighted the urgent need for evidence in closed spaces. Many neighbors signed eagerly, citing their own sense of vulnerability, particularly older adults or single tenants who occasionally felt uneasy with no cameras to back them up in case of conflict. Within a week, over 60% of residents had signed, surpassing any typical threshold the HOA required for adding new security measures. Meanwhile, Brandon assembled a cost proposal. He found a reputable brand offering compact, high-resolution cameras that could connect wirelessly to a central security server. The building's existing Wi-Fi infrastructure would suffice to transmit footage. The cameras were small enough to blend into an elevator's ceiling corner. They recorded on motion or continuously, storing data for a fixed period, say, 2 weeks, after which it auto-deleted unless flagged for an incident. The next regular HOA board meeting was scheduled for mid-month. The timing felt perfect. They'd present the petition, the cost breakdown, and hopefully get a vote. Robin agreed to speak, explaining how the lack of elevator cameras had allowed her dog's attacker to deny wrongdoing. "If we had footage," she'd say, "Karen wouldn't be able to lie about Misty lunging at her." Karen, oblivious to the wave of support, continued her usual rounds of complaining about minor building code violations, an overstuffed trash bin, a neighbor's door wreath left past the holiday, etc. She barely seemed to register that a large portion of residents were quietly teaming up against her. Perhaps she assumed the building was on her side, as they always had been. But that was about to change. Mid-month arrived, and the large recreation room on the mezzanine floor filled with neighbors for the HOA meeting. Usually, these sessions attracted a handful of attendees, but the new security camera proposal drew a crowd. Karen, who typically enjoyed controlling such gatherings, seemed startled by the turnout. Howard Davis, the HOA president, opened the agenda, acknowledging the first item, discussion of a petition to install security cameras in the building's elevators. The mention elicited nods from many and cold silence from Karen. Robin spoke first, briefly recounting the elevator assault. Her voice trembled, but she remained firm, describing how Misty was bruised. With cameras, we'd have had definitive proof. Instead, I have to endure her denying it. She gestured to the petition forms stacked on a table. Over half the residents here want the peace of mind that cameras can provide. Elena and Anita chimed in, referencing how even smaller apartment complexes had elevator cameras for safety. Brandon presented his slides, showcasing discrete camera models, pricing, and examples from other local buildings. The entire presentation was crisp and persuasive. He fielded questions from board members about storage capacity and privacy protocols. The crowd seemed overwhelmingly in favor. Then Karen cleared her throat. "I object to this intrusive measure," she declared. "Elevators are effectively private spaces. We have privacy rights. People might feel uncomfortable being recorded every time they ride upstairs with groceries or chat with neighbors." Donna Hensley, normally quiet, responded calmly. "We already have cameras in the lobby and hallways for security. Many buildings do. Elevators are public, shared spaces in the same sense." Karen's lips thinned. "But an elevator is not the same as a wide hallway. This is a matter of principle. We can't just spy on each other. Also, it's a large expense. Who covers that?" Carlton Walker, the treasurer, explained that the building's reserve funds could cover most of it, with minimal additional fees for each unit. "Given the strong support, we can justify it under the building's security and safety improvements budget line." Karen's face grew increasingly pinched. Sensing momentum slipping away, she resorted to a more emotional argument. "I have allergies. If a camera sees me having an allergic reaction, that's humiliating. Who handles that footage? Could it be leaked?" Brandon responded calmly. "The feed is stored securely and reviewed only if there's a reported incident. No one's streaming it for entertainment." The tension peaked. Residents whispered among themselves, rolling their eyes at Karen's flimsy excuse. Finally, Howard called for a vote. All board members in favor of installing discrete cameras in each elevator with a secure monitoring plan, please raise your hand. Immediately, Miguel Ortega raised his. Donna followed, then Carlton. The eyes turned to Karen, but she sat stone-faced, arms crossed, refusing to vote. Howard, as president, lifted his hand with a sigh. "That's 4 yes," he announced. "Motion passes. We'll begin planning the implementation with Brandon's help." Meeting adjourned. A ripple of applause burst forth. Karen fumed, gathering her papers and hurrying out. Robin felt tears of relief welling. This wouldn't erase the assault on Misty, but it ensured that next time, they'd have proof. And it meant the building stood behind her, not Karen. Though the HOA vote was a resounding victory for security cameras, the implementation wasn't immediate. Brandon and the board had to coordinate with the building's management company, ensuring elevator modifications didn't violate any codes or warranties. Paperwork, city permits, and vendor negotiations took time. Karen seized on every delay, complaining that the board was acting illegally or that the city inspector would reject the plan. She emailed reams of messages to the management company, claiming elevator cameras violated privacy laws or disrupted her medical needs. The building manager politely responded that their legal counsel saw no major obstacles, especially since many multi-unit dwellings had similar setups. Amid the red tape, tensions remained high. Robin avoided sharing an elevator with Karen if possible. If she spotted Karen waiting, she'd let Misty lead her toward a different elevator or wait for the next one. Karen reciprocated, glaring if they crossed paths in the corridor. Some neighbors worried another confrontation might happen before the cameras were installed. To address immediate concerns, building security staff offered to escort Robin whenever possible. But that arrangement felt cumbersome, and Robin didn't want to rely on an escort just to ride an elevator in her own home. The entire building yearned for the cameras to be up and running, so the threat of hidden aggression would vanish. Still, each day brought incremental progress. The final vendor's quote arrived. The building's attorney drafted a short privacy policy specifying how footage would be used. The city didn't object, provided the system met safety guidelines. The projected timeline for installation was set at about 6 weeks. Residents counted down the days. As the camera installation date approached, Karen grew increasingly volatile. She didn't physically lash out again, likely fearing repercussions, but she escalated her verbal harassment. Several residents reported her making snide remarks about the new dog cameras, as though mocking the entire project. One morning, Hank Miller, a resident in his 70s, was exiting the elevator with his small dog, not a service animal, just a permitted pet, and Karen blocked his path, ranting about how these filthy animals are everywhere now. He told her to move aside. She refused, and he nearly tripped. Building security had to intervene. Shortly after, rumors circulated that Karen was trying to pressure the board to ban all non-service pets. The policy would force a revote on the building's pet allowances. When the matter came to the board's attention, they dismissed it outright. The existing pet policy was popular, and no one wanted to cater to Karen's vendetta. Throughout all this drama, Karen continued to push the line that she was the real victim. Allergies, fear of being filmed, harassment by dog-loving neighbors, and so on. Yet the vast majority of Brookhaven Vista's residents had grown wise to her manipulations. The support for the new cameras solidified further. Robin stayed out of direct confrontations, focusing on Misty's well-being. The dog recovered from her bruise, though she remained skittish in tight spaces. Robin gently worked on retraining Misty's comfort in elevators, sometimes going up and down at off-peak hours to avoid stress. She silently prayed the cameras would deter Karen from ever trying such a thing again. At last, the day for installing the elevator cameras arrived. A specialized security contractor arrived at dawn, carrying boxes of sleek black devices. Brandon escorted them around, pointing out each elevator car. By mid-morning, the drilling and wiring began. Curious residents peeked out of doorways or popped into the lobby to observe the progress. Some took photos to post on the building's online forum. Finally, we're getting elevator cams. Karen's door remained shut. Some suspected she might be out or deliberately avoiding the scene. By late afternoon, the contractor finished mounting the cameras in all 4 elevators, a small dome in a corner near the ceiling, angled to capture the interior. The next step involved linking them to the building's existing security system. A dedicated monitor in the security office would display the feed if needed. Otherwise, footage would go to a secure, cloud-based server stored for 2 weeks. Residents felt a collective sense of relief. The cameras were physically there. Karen or no Karen, they'd still need to be tested, and the official policy would commence the following morning. But from that moment on, the building had a new measure of accountability in a once blind spot. That evening, a spontaneous celebratory atmosphere took over the courtyard. Neighbors chatted about how they could now ride the elevators without fear. Some joked, Karen better watch her step. Others said it was about more than just Karen, it was about overall safety. Either way, nearly everyone cheered the camera's arrival. The following morning, the building's security team set the cameras to active recording mode. A memo from the HOA explained how it worked. Elevator footage will be recorded and stored for 2 weeks. Reviewed only in case of incident. Access limited to authorized personnel. Robin ventured into the elevator with Misty for a routine trip to the mailroom. A new sense of confidence buoyed her. She no longer felt the need to check corners or watch for Karen. If Karen tried anything, the camera would capture it. Misty seemed calmer too, perhaps sensing Robin's ease. Sure enough, on the elevator ride down, the door opened on floor 8, and in stepped Karen, face taut. For a split second, Robin's heart rate quickened. But behind Karen, the small black camera perched overhead, a silent sentinel. Karen glanced at it with a scowl. She didn't say a word, just pressed the button for the lobby. The elevator descended in tense silence. Misty lay calmly at Robin's side, occasionally flicking her tail. Karen stood stiffly in the corner, arms folded, pointedly ignoring both dog and wheelchair user. When the doors opened in the lobby, Karen stepped out first, head held high, and left without so much as a backward glance. Robin exhaled in relief. The difference was palpable. Had that camera not been there, might Karen have tried something? She realized this was how many neighbors probably felt too, finally safe from unprovoked aggression. Over the next week, building staff noticed Karen's usual patrolling had diminished. She wasn't prowling the corridors as often, nor was she picking fights in the lobby. Some joked that she was huddling in her condo, trying to avoid being filmed in the elevators. Others suspected she was plotting a new complaint strategy. In truth, Karen felt cornered. She had grown accustomed to exerting her will with minimal repercussions. But now, Any attempt at intimidation or assault would be captured on camera, turning her into an instant pariah if she wasn't already. She fired off a few more bitter emails to the management company, complaining that the cameras were an invasion of personal privacy, or that they failed to address her allergy concerns, but no one took them seriously. Meanwhile, the building's daily life carried on smoothly. Residents marveled at how quickly an environment could change once a single threat lost its power. People's micro-stresses about encountering Karen eased. Elevator rides became mundane again, even pleasant. In short, the cameras had exactly the effect the building hoped for, a deterrent that forced Karen to behave. Robin continued her routine, taking Misty for walks, going grocery shopping, attending physical therapy. She'd see Karen in passing occasionally, always from a distance, always overshadowed by the knowledge that they were likely on camera in shared spaces. Karen couldn't hide behind, she said, any longer. Despite the lull in Karen's visible hostility, tensions still simmered under the surface. She felt humiliated and restricted in her own home. The neighbors she once intimidated now regarded her with disdain. A sense of righteous anger built within her. One evening, close to midnight, building security received a frantic call from a resident on the 5th floor. "Something's going on in the elevator. I hear loud shouting." Security hurried to check the camera feed for elevator number 3. The feed revealed a startling sight. Karen was in the elevator, ranting at a younger tenant named Priya, who was carrying a small cat in a carrier. Karen pointed aggressively at the cat, presumably spouting her allergy complaints. The cat meowed, and Karen lunged forward, jostling Priya. The carrier rocked precariously. Security saw enough. They activated the elevator's emergency override, halting it at the 4th floor and dispatching a guard to intercept. The camera caught the entire exchange. Karen's attempt to block Priya, her violent gestures. When the security guard opened the elevator, Karen shrank back, cheeks flushed. Priya was trembling, hugging the cat carrier. "She tried to yank the door open and threatened me," Priya said tearfully. Karen denied it, but the guard calmly informed her that the entire incident was on camera. Karen's face went ashen. They escorted both women to the lobby. Under normal circumstances, this might have devolved into a fruitless argument. But now, the security guard had conclusive footage. He politely told Karen she would face a formal complaint for harassment. Priya left, still shaken but relieved. Karen, looking cornered, walked away, refusing to speak further. By morning, the entire building buzzed with the news. The dog cams had proved their worth, though ironically, they'd caught Karen attacking a cat, not a dog. Residents marveled at how swiftly security intervened once they saw the live feed. No one was physically hurt, though Priya's cat had nearly been tossed about. That same day, the HOA board initiated proceedings against Karen for violating the building's code of conduct. She might face fines, possible suspension of membership privileges, or even a lawsuit from Priya. The presence of crystal-clear video left Karen no defense. The HOA called an emergency session. This time, the board members arrived with grim faces, having reviewed the elevator footage from the previous night. Typically, punishing a fellow board member required a formal process, but the evidence of Karen's repeated aggression was overwhelming. Karen sat alone at one end of the long table, shoulders tense. Robin attended as well, wanting to see the outcome. Priya also came, looking timid but resolute, her cat safe at home. Howard Davis opened by summarizing the new incident. "We have clear video showing Ms. Burnett forcibly interfering with Ms. Rao, Priya, and her pet in the elevator. This follows allegations of Ms. Burnett kicking a service dog a few weeks ago. While that prior incident lacked video proof, we now have a pattern." Miguel Ortega stepped in. "Karen, do you have any defense for your actions on camera?" Karen's voice trembled with rage. "I was merely trying to exit the elevator. The cat was in my path, and I have allergies. This building is turning into a pet zoo, all ignoring my medical needs. And these cameras are an invasion of my privacy." She pointed an accusatory finger at Brandon, who was in the room as a resident observer. "You set this up to humiliate me." Carlton, the treasurer, calmly replied, "We set it up to protect residents. Your actions were caught harming another occupant. The cat was confined in a carrier, no threat to you. Your behavior is inexcusable." With the meeting open to the public, A few neighbors voiced their disgust at Karen's repeated hostility. Some recounted times they witnessed her intimidation. Others insisted the building shouldn't have to revolve around Karen's alleged allergies, especially since it was never backed by medical documentation. Finally, the board deliberated privately, then returned to announce their decision. Howard, looking weary, said, "Ms. Burnett, in light of your repeated aggressive behavior, we are imposing the following. A formal censure by the HOA board, publicly recorded. A $2,000 fine for violating the building's code of conduct, specifically harassing a resident and mishandling a pet. A suspension of your board privileges and voting rights for 6 months. An official warning that any further harassment could lead to legal action or potential eviction proceedings if deemed necessary under the condo bylaws." An audible gasp rippled through the crowd. Such severe measures were nearly unheard of at Brookhaven Vista. Karen's face blazed with shock. She half rose from her chair, shaking. "You can't do this." Howard answered quietly, "We can, per the bylaws. The evidence is conclusive." Karen's gaze swept the room, but found no sympathy. Neighbors glared back, some with folded arms, others nodding in approval of the board's stance. Karen abruptly stormed out, slamming the door. Everyone exhaled, a mixture of relief and lingering tension. Robin felt tears of vindication. True, the initial assault on Misty was never recorded, but that injustice spurred the camera installation, and ultimately, it was Karen's continuing aggression that sealed her downfall. She leaned down to stroke Misty, who wagged her tail gently. In the days after Karen's censure, the building collectively breathed easier. Residents used the elevators without fear. Even people who once opposed too much surveillance admitted the cameras had proven invaluable. The building's policy restricted footage review to actual incidents, and no major privacy complaints arose. Everyone saw how quickly the cat fiasco was resolved, preventing harm. Robin found her day-to-day life improved dramatically. Misty regained her full confidence in the elevators, no longer trembling at the threshold. Neighbors often offered a friendly greeting, praising Misty for her calm presence. With Karen sidelined from the board, no one harassed Robin about dog dander. The atmosphere felt almost celebratory, a small triumph of empathy and accountability. Priya, too, expressed gratitude, though she remained cautious. "I never thought someone would lash out at me like that over a cat in a carrier," she said to Robin one afternoon. "But I'm glad the building stepped up." The two bonded over their shared experiences, forging a budding friendship. They occasionally took their pets outside together, finding solidarity in the face of Karen's bigotry. In the background, some whispered that Karen might attempt legal retaliation or refuse to pay the fine. Others speculated she might sell her condo and move. But for the moment, she seemed uncharacteristically quiet, limiting her presence in common areas. Perhaps she recognized that the cameras and the building's majority were aligned against her brand of aggression. Sure enough, rumors soon emerged that Karen had listed her condo. A real estate agent was spotted entering her unit. She hadn't formally announced plans to depart, but the signs were clear. Her beloved stronghold of authority had crumbled. Eventually, neighbors saw the unit appear on a local housing website, sleek 2-bedroom with city views, in prime HOA-managed condo. The listing photos didn't show much personal detail, though some recognized Karen's austere furniture. The price was high. Perhaps she expected a quick sale, wanting to rid herself of a building that now defied her control. The general consensus among residents? Good riddance. They felt no sadness losing someone who had sowed discord and fear. More pressing was how the building would handle future aggression. The success of the dog cam setup gave people hope that transparency kept bullies at bay. One evening, as Robin was returning from a stroll with Misty, she noticed a moving truck parked near the side entrance. Workers were hauling out cardboard boxes. Karen stood nearby, arms folded, overseeing the process. Her expression was stony, eyes fixed forward. Misty's tail wagged uncertainly, as if the dog sensed tension but also wanted to greet a human in passing. Robin kept a respectful distance, not wanting another altercation. Nevertheless, Karen spotted them. For a moment, the two women locked gazes. Robin braced for a final snide comment or perhaps another vile remark. But Karen just stared, lips pressed tight. After a moment, her shoulders slumped slightly, as though in resignation. She broke eye contact, turning away as she barked orders at the movers. That was their last silent exchange. By the next morning, Karen's condo was empty, the blinds drawn. Residents discovered a small typed note pinned to the lobby bulletin board. I am leaving Brookhaven Vista. The building has changed, and I no longer feel it aligns with my preferences. To those who valued peace and quiet, keep fighting for a pet-free environment. Karen, Lauren Burnett, ***. Many rolled their eyes at her parting shot. Good riddance, Anita declared, summing up the community's general sentiment. With Karen's departure, Brookhaven Vista found itself in a new era of neighborly harmony. The elevator cameras remained in place, continuing to serve as a quiet deterrent to any potential conflicts. Residents no longer dreaded stepping into an enclosed space with a known bully. In time, the presence of the cameras became second nature, just a standard security measure, like the lobby's front desk sign-in or the parking garage gates. Though Karen never faced criminal charges for kicking Misty, the building's swift response and the subsequent adoption of the cameras ensured that no other occupant or pet would fall victim to hidden aggression again. The once chilly atmosphere melted into a friendlier dynamic. People chatted openly, held potlucks in the lounge, and even formed a small residents' pet club that occasionally organized dog walks and cat-sitting rosters. Robin, for her part, flourished. With Misty's unwavering support, she navigated daily tasks more confidently than ever. She found new friends in Priya, Elena, and others who admired her courage. The building soon elected a new board member in Karen's vacated seat, someone known for fairness and community spirit, rather than control and intimidation. On quiet afternoons, Robin sometimes reflected on how close she'd come to suffering in silence, lacking evidence of Misty's assault. But the building had rallied around her, forging a solution that benefited everyone. Even if Karen had fled in anger, the outcome was a testament to collective action. How individuals, united by empathy and a desire for safety, could curb a bully's power. And so, Brookhaven Vista carried on, its glass towers gleaming, its hallways echoing with friendly hellos, and its elevators discreetly watched over by small, unblinking cameras. No occupant doubted that if any Karen ever tried to harm a dog, a cat, or a neighbor again, the building would see it, and justice would swiftly follow. That knowledge granted a peace greater than any plush carpet or modern design possibly could, peace built on accountability and shared respect for one another's well-being.